Thandor slept deeply, the kind of sleep earned by years of discipline and exhaustion. His breath was slow, even, unaware of the shape of danger. Danger that was already inside. 6 men dressed in black stood around his bed like funeral statues, faces hidden behind cloth and shadow. No one spoke. No one rushed. They watched him the way hunters watch a trapped animal. Patient, reverent, almost respectful. In his dreams, the world was warm. White sand stretches beneath an endless blue sky. The surf whispers. Thandor sat barefoot at the edge of the water, younger somehow, lighter. The scars of his life not yet written into his bones. He breathed in salt and sun and smiled. Someone sat beside him. Thandor startled, twisting on instinct. Lieutenant Spectre, sir! The man nodded once. He wore a purple mask, smooth and expressionless, its surface drinking in the sunlight rather than reflecting it. What are you doing here? Thandor asked. Reports say you met your end. Spectre stared out at the sea. Think of me as an echo, he said calmly, a ripple moving backward through time. Thandor frowned. Whatever the mighty Spectre needs, you know I have a request, Spectre interrupted, finally turning his masked face toward him. When you are offered great power, turn it down. The wind shifted. The waves grew louder. Thandor narrowed his eyes. Why tell me this now? Spectre's head tilted. Because now would be a good time to wake up. Why? A pause. Then, softly, because they're going to get you. Thandor's eyes snapped open. A gloved hand was already reaching for him. He moved before thought, before fear. His fingers clamped around the wrist and twisted hard, bone grinding under pressure. A muffled curse escaped the man as Thandor kicked out blindly, heel slamming into the ribs on the far side of the bed. Something cracked, not broken, but close. Thandor rolled up and out of the sheets, bare feet hitting the floor as fists and shadows closed in. His room became a storm of black cloth and flashing steel. He slammed one attacker into the wall, driving the air from his lungs, then ducked as another swung a baton that whistled where his head had been. The fight was ugly, close, personal. Thandor took a knee to the gut and answered with an elbow to the throat. Controlled, precise, enough to drop the man choking without crushing his windpipe. He grabbed a lamp and shattered it across someone's shoulder, glass exploding like ice, sparks flaring. They came at him 3 at a time. A fist clipped his jaw. Stars burst behind his eyes. He laughed through blood and drove forward anyway, tackling one man onto the bed, the mattress buckling as they crashed together. Thandor pinned him, arm locked tight, pressure building, then released, shoving him aside before anything snapped. Something buzzed. Pain like fire slammed into his spine. Thandor roared, muscles seizing as electricity rippled through him. He tried to turn, tried to fight it, but his body betrayed him, locking up, teeth clenched, hard enough to crack. He saw the device just before darkness took him. An electric cattle prod, industrial grade, humming with cruel efficiency. Built for humans, overkill for anyone else. As the world faded, the last thing Thandor heard was Spectre's voice, not aloud, but echoing somewhere deep and distant in the back of his mind. Remember what I said. Then the dark took him. Torchlight wavered like nervous breath. Thandor came to with iron biting his wrists and shoulders. Chains pulled tight enough that every small movement scraped bone. Cold stone pressed into his spine. Around him stood his captors, black-clad figures, faces swallowed by masks, unmoving as grave markers. The only sound was the pop of resin in the torches and the slow, stubborn beat of his heart. He strained against the chains anyway. Muscles screamed. Iron laughed. "Untie me," Thandor growled, "or kill me and be done with it." A fist answered instead, hard, efficient. His head snapped sideways, copper flooding his mouth. "You don't ask the questions," one of them said calmly. "You answer them." They circled him like wolves. Questions came sharp and fast. Guard rotations, shift changes, which towers slept during storms, where the king walked at night, where the queen prayed, which doors were sealed, which only pretended to be. Thandor spat blood and said nothing. A laser pistol hummed to life, then another. Red dots danced over his chest, his throat, his face, tiny suns promising an easy end. Thandor lifted his chin, bruised, shaking, unbroken. "Do it," he said and smiled. "Eternos will bury you." Silence. Then, laughter. Deep, familiar, unmistakable. A booming, joyous bark that shattered the tension like glass. One of the figures stepped forward and ripped his mask off. "By the gods!" Braxus roared, wiping tears from his eyes. I told them you wouldn't break." Thandor blinked once, twice. "Braxus?" he breathed. Another figure removed his mask with a flourish and dipped into an exaggerated bow. He was lean and sharp-featured, eyes slitted and gold-flecked like a human cat. His hair fell in the dark, striped layers down his neck, and faint tattoos traced along his cheekbones like whisker marks. "Disappointing," the man said, with a grin full of mischief. "I had 5 marks riding on you cracking after the second pistol." "Who?" Thandor began. The man tapped his own chest. "Sharik Fel-Nix. Quadian. Scout. Shadow. Occasional pain in the king's spine." His smile widened. "You passed." Chains rattled, hands moved fast now. Keys, clasps, relief. Thandor sagged forward as the restraints fell away, catching himself before he hit the ground. Boots approached. Thandor looked up. King Randor stood before him, armor dulled, cloak absent, eyes bright with something fierce and personal. Not a ruler on a throne, but a man who had watched, measured, and decided. Randor leaned in close to Braxus, rubbed feeling back into Thandor's arms. Randor leaned in close as Braxus rubbed feeling back into Thandor's arms. "I ask you here and now," the king said quietly, "if your will is strong enough to endure what comes next." Thandor bowed out of instinct. Hands grabbed him, firm, correcting, pulling him upright. "No," Braxus said gently. Not here. Randor's voice cracked like thunder. Here we stand as equals. Speak again like a subject and I'll have your tongue ripped out by Braxis himself. Braxis grinned. With love. Anger flared, hot, honest. Thandor met the king's gaze, jaw set. The guard is who I am, he said. If there is something higher, I will rise to meet it so long as it is honorable and so long as it serves the people of Eternos. Randor stepped back, smiled. Then hear me, Thandor. He turned to the others, torchlight catching red armor hidden beneath black cloaks, gold etchings glinting like buried suns. Brothers and sisters, Randor said, voice full and proud. Welcome Thandor of Eternos into our fold. Applause filled the chamber, hands striking armor, fists to chests. Thandor looked around, stunned. Braxis pulled him into a crushing embrace and laughed in his ear. The king has need of those who stand when others fall, he said. Those who guard the crown, not the throne. He pulled back, eyes fierce, joyful. Welcome to the Crimson Falcons. The Whispering Woods lived up to its name. Leaves murmured secrets overheard. Branches creaked like old veterans remembering past wars. And shafts of green gold light speared down through the canopy as blades rang and boots churned the loam. Etheria smelled different from Eternos. Wilder, sharper, alive in a way stone castles never were. Thandor rolled to his feet just in time to block a strike that would have taken his head. Too slow, Princess Adora said, already stepping past him. She moved like a storm given purpose, efficient, relentless, no wasted motion. Thandor recovered, heart hammering, and couldn't help but grin despite the ache in his shoulders. Captain Tila hits harder, someone muttered nearby. But Adora? A pause. She doesn't stop. Braxis snorted. That's worse. The squad regrouped under a towering oak while Adora barked corrections at another unit, deeper in the woods. Braxis clapped a hand on Thandor's shoulder. Since you're done kissing dirt, he said, meet the Red Falcons. He gestured to a broad-shouldered figure, adjusting his gauntlets. Skin like burnished stone, eyes calm and heavy with patience. Korgan, Braxis said. Gar. Hits like a siege ram. Thinks before he swings, mostly. Korgan gave a slow nod. Mostly. Next stood a tall winged warrior, feathers banded in crimson and gold. Wings folded tight out of courtesy rather than need. Astra Vel, Braxis continued. Avian scout. If she's in the air, we're already late. Astra smirked. If you can see me, you've already lost. Something hissed softly. From the shadows stepped a lean, scaled figure, eyes bright and unblinking, movements fluid and precise. Sereth, Braxis said. Repton, silent, likes knives. Don't borrow anything from him, though. Sereth tilted his head. Return things on time, and we won't have no problems. Lastly, buzzing faintly with restrained energy, a compact figure with iridescent wings folded behind her back and compound eyes gleaming with intelligence. Zyra Flickspire, Braxis finished. Adrenid, tactician, explosives, traps, questions everything. Zyra raised her finger. Correction. I question bad ideas. She glanced at Adora in the distance, currently knocking 3 trainees flat in under 10 seconds. And this is a very good idea. For 3 months, they bled together in the Whispering Woods. They ran until lungs burned. They fought until arms shook. They learned to trust footsteps, shadows, signals given with a glance. Adora broke them down without mercy and rebuilt them stronger. When they finally returned to Eternia, they barely had time to breathe before sunlight split the sky. Sunman descended in a blaze of warmth and radiance, landing before them with theatrical ease. "Well," he said, hands on his hips, smiling, "if it isn't my favorite swimmers." Thandor groaned. Braxis laughed outright. "You drop us into the sea once," Braxis said, "and suddenly it's your whole personality." Sunman winked. "Twice, actually. I was being polite." Training with the Warriors of Light was different, brighter, hopeful, punishing in its own way. Strength married purpose, power tempered with compassion. Another 3 months passed in sweat and laughter and hard-won growth. Then came Orca Island. Decker met them on the shore, arms crossed, beard wild, eyes sharp with old truths. When asked what training awaited them, he answered by throwing a full set of Eternian Palace armor onto the sand. It clanged, proud and useless. "You'll make better than that," Decker said, laughing as he turned away, "or you'll die trying." They toiled in caves for months, digging, bleeding, hauling strange luminous ore from the island's bones. They learned fire and forge, hammer and patience, how to listen to metal, not command it. When they finally stood before their work, lighter, stronger, etched with the mark of the Red Falcons, Thandor understood. They were no longer just guards. They were something forged, and the world was going to feel it. 2 years of pain had earned them a quiet place. The chamber lay tucked behind false stone and ancient mechanisms, a barracks known only to the king and the Crimson Falcons. Low firelight glinted off weapon racks and armor stands etched in gold. Scars on steel and skin alike were common currency here. Laughter was rare but real. On this off day, it existed. Braxis sat sharpening a blade that had already tasted monsters. Zyra reclined upside down from a beam, tinkering with a device that hummed softly. Sarath stood motionless in shadow, watching everyone. Korgan stretched like a living wall of muscle and stone. Astra cleaned her wings with methodical care. Thandor leaned back, helmet beside him, breathing in the stillness. The door slammed open. King Randor strode in, face hard, fire in his eyes. No one bowed, but they did stand as one. "My falcons," Randor said, voice tight with urgency. "I need you." The room sharpened. "My daughter requires aid on Etheria. The Whispering Woods burn. This will test everything you have become." A pause. "Time is short. I will brief you on the way." His gaze locked on Thandor, then swept the others. "Suit up." The Whispering Woods screamed. Fire devoured ancient trees, turning leaves to ash mid-fall. Horde tanks ground through roots and stone alike. Treads crushing nests, burrows, lives that never had names. Mechanical Horde troops marched in perfect silence, weapons coughing light and death into the green. Animals fled, deer stumbling aflame, winged things shrieking as the sky betrayed them. Small forest creatures cried out, their sounds lost beneath engines and explosions. Then the sky tore open. A portal split the clouds, bleeding red light. From it emerged a ship shaped like a hunting bird. Sleek, brutal, unmistakable. A Crimson Falcon. Steel wings spread wide as it slid into real space. Its cannons roared. Horde tanks detonated in molten fire. Walkers toppled. Columns shattered. The forest shook as the ship screamed defiance into the smoke. The Falcon's underside opened. Figures dropped like judgment. Crimson armor, gold etchings, capes snapped in the heat and wind. They hit the ground as one. Thandor took point. The Crimson Falcons formed a living wall between the Horde and the helpless. Shields locking together, heavy weapons braced. Horde troopers opened fire immediately, plasma and lasers streaking into the line. Energy shields flared. They held. They waited. Weapons clicked dry across the enemy ranks. Thandor lowered his shield. "Advance," he said. The Falcons moved. Step by measured step, shields dropped, blades raised. The first Horde line broke against them like water against stone. Korgan crushed 3 units with a single swing. Sarath vanished and reappeared behind the enemy, dismantling them with surgical brutality. Astra took to the air, dropping hard and fast, spears punching through steel skulls. Zyra's traps bloomed beneath enemy feet, silent flashes, sudden absence. Braxis waded forward, laughing, hammer rising and falling like thunder. A tank rolled toward them, barrel glowing. Thandor broke formation. He ran straight at it. Rounds tore the ground around him. He vaulted debris, slapped a grenade into the open hatch, and kept running. The tank exploded behind him, fire washing over his cape as he slid back into line without breaking stride. They did not shout. They did not falter. They butchered the Horde with discipline and fury, shields locking, blades rising, a machine of flesh and will tearing apart a machine of steel and cruelty. When the Horde fell at last, the last unit twitching into the ash, the forest was quiet, burned, wounded, but alive. The Crimson Falcon stood amid ruin and smoke, armor scorched, weapons dripping oil and sparks. Between the flames and the frightened creatures behind them, they held the line. Then, just as quickly as they arrived, they vanished, leaving those who witnessed their fury to wonder if they were angels sent by Shira or something, someone else.